Hey all y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carrie. This is where I talk about knitting, my tips, my tricks, my opinions, my preferences, my experiences, and my experiments of making pretty things with pretty string. Now yes, I am primarily a knitter, but I do crochet and I do Tunisian crochet as well. And today's video is really for anybody who has ever had a project with a ball of yarn and needing to join in another ball of yarn. If you knit or crochet, joining in new yarn is as inevitable as losing at yarn chicken. Like, that day comes for us all. This hat I just recently finished, and this is Tunisian crochet that was worked in the round. There came a point when I was working on this hat, I was gonna have to join in another ball in order to complete the project. And I felt more secure maintaining the structural integrity of the hat by having a continuous length of yarn that you would get out of, say, utilizing the felted join or the Russian join. Only big problem for me, this yarn, I love it, but it's super wash. The problem with Russian joins or a felted join is that they really work with 100% non-superwash wool. A lot of times people like to use magic knots, and magic knots are fine except that it's a knot, and well, I'm not judging anybody. I'm not judging anybody who chooses to utilize a magic knot. A magic knot has its place. But there is a join that is kind of amazing that doesn't get spoken about nearly enough, and that is the braided join. This join works with any plied yarn regardless of fiber. It maintains the thickness of the yarn throughout, there's no knots involved, and it does minimize tails that you need to weave in. So hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and learn how to do the braided join. As always, before we jump into everything, just a reminder that down in the description box, you will find timestamps to different parts of the video. Of course, I always hope that you'll watch through the whole video at least one time, but sometimes you gotta get to something specific, and so there are timestamps below. Also in the description box, you will find a list of materials and resources that I think are relevant to today's video. Some of these will have clearly marked affiliate links. If you click on one of these links, it'll take you to a shopping website, and if you make a purchase, I might earn a small commission, which really does help support my channel. Any tips or commissions that I receive get reinvested back to the channel, and they help me buy materials for review, materials for demonstration, upgrade my equipment, everything I can to help make this an amazing resource for you. So if you utilize one of my affiliate links, thank you so much. It's so greatly appreciated. And if not, totally understand. I'm really just glad you're here watching a video today. To do the braided join, you do need a couple of things. One is a nice flat, stable surface. This is not something that you want to just be doing sitting at your couch. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you'll get really practiced at it and you can accomplish that while sitting at your couch just on your knee or something. I can't. I need a nice flat, stable surface. Also, you're going to need something to clip the two tails together at where the braid starts. A binder clip can work really, really well. If you have a clipboard, it's not a bad idea to use the clip on the clipboard and like gently tape that clipboard down to keep everything really stable. That could be something that's really useful for you. I am going to utilize a magic clip. This is what I have a lot of, and they're always handy, and I really love having a magic clip. Also, for the braided join, you do need a good length of tail. When you do this technique, you're going to braid about 4 to 6 inches of tail together. How long that braid needs to be kind of depends on how slippery the yarn is. The slippier the yarn, the longer the braid needs to be to make sure that it holds together. I'll show you quickly what happens if you don't braid enough tail together. You can see here, I just pull that yarn right out, and it's only because I didn't have a long enough tail braided together. So you need at least 6 inches of tail, but really 8 to 10 is better because you are going to have some loose ends on either side of the braid when you're finished that you'll be able to clip away when you're all done, but it's good to have some extra length. So for this, I have this swatch to demonstrate the braided join with, and I am actually going to use a contrasting color of yarn so you can clearly see what's going on. However, I just want to emphasize right now that this is not a join that's appropriate for color changes. I think it'll be pretty obvious as to why that is, but I wanted to make sure that you could clearly see what's going on, so I'm going to use contrasting colors of yarn. So this is a braid, right? A 3-stranded braid. And so that means I need 3 strands, but I've only got 2 tails. So what you do is you split the plies of the new ball of yarn. And I always make sure that it is the plies from the new ball that I split for this technique, because if something goes wrong, if there's a problem and I have to try again, the tail from the old ball is maintained. So I'm going to take my yarn here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just unravel the plies. And this is nice because this is a 4-ply yarn. So I'll have 2 plies on either end. And you're going to want to undo about 6 inches. Okay, so now I'm going to lay these 2 plies so that the ball of yarn is furthest away from me and the ends are closest to me. I want to braid towards me. And I'll take the tail from the project and move that in the opposite direction. However, that tail is actually too short to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and unpick some stitches so I have a long enough tail to do my braid. Now I'm going to set this up so that the tail of the project, that end, is farther away from me and sits in between the plies from the new ball of yarn. So I have 2 plies that are to the left of the project tail and 2 plies that are to the right. And then I'm going to clip these 3 ends together with my magic clip. So clip those together. And now we just do the braid. And with the braid, you just start with your left strand, twist the left and the center strand together, then twist the strand that's to the right and the center together. And that's all you do. The hardest part is getting the braid started, truthfully, because once you get a little, like an inch or so through, the braiding becomes much easier. But you want to have this braid be pretty tight, like A, to make sure that the braid holds the join together, but B, you maintain the thickness of the yarn. That's one of the really nice things with this technique. Once I have a couple of inches of the braid done, I remove the clip. The one thing about the magic clip I don't love is the weight of it does sort of start to make it a little trickier to braid. So it becomes a little easier after I remove it. So this is acrylic yarn, which is a slipperier yarn, but this acrylic also does have crimp built into it. Remember, acrylic generally was designed to dry to mimic wool, and so some of that crimp that's in the acrylic is going to help hold this braid together. If you had something like a silk or a linen or cotton that has no crimp in it or very little crimp, you might need to braid more together in order to get the joint to hold. That's good. That should be enough right there. I think that's enough. Let's see. Again, we'll do the pull test. Take one end, pull the other. Yep, totally holding. It is not budging. Like, that is holding nice and firm. That braid is gonna hold everything. But I do have these little ends. I'm going to let these ends sort of be for right now, and start knitting up more of the swatch so that you can see how I deal with these little bit of extra ends after I'm done with the braiding. Okay, so I did have to start this tail kind of in the middle to make sure I had enough tail here to do my join, and I unraveled more than enough knitting, so I'm going to just start knitting this swatch again. I'm going to get to that first bit of join there pretty quickly, about right here. Conveniently, those look like they're going to end up right on the edge of the swatch. That's kind of an ideal place in a lot of ways. But what I want to do is I want to make sure those tails go to the back of the work and they stay to the back of the work and they don't show up on the front of the work. So that is to those tails, and I'm just going to make sure that they stay back there. In fact, I'm going to hold them a little bit with my hand as I knit this next stitch. There we go. And I'm going to just keep knitting until I get to the next bit of tail. I'm coming up to my next little bit of tail here, and these are much smaller tails. That's actually a little bit smaller. This little end bit here is a little bit smaller than I would ideally want, believe it or not, because it's easier to keep a longer bit like this to the back and trim it away than it is a short little bit like that. Now I'm into my new source of yarn and knitting along as if it was all one ball of yarn to begin with. Like, if this were all one color, you wouldn't even know that a ball change had occurred. I'm gonna knit a couple of rows here just so you can see how the whole thing blends in together.
Now, I personally like to use the braided join a lot when I'm doing lace work and the yarn isn't appropriate for a Russian join or a felted join. Lace just really benefits from minimizing tails.
Now this is a garter stitch border, so my first 4 stitches I'm knitting, and then I switch to my purl. And if you just noticed on that purl stitch, I did not wrap it counterclockwise.
You can see here, I wrapped it clockwise.
A quick tip. When you are doing a knit purl combination, when you change from the knit to the purl side, the knit stitch that is to the right of the first purl stitch can get loose. And a way to sort of fix that is to do a bit of combo knitting, and that is to do your purl stitch by wrapping the yarn clockwise around the needle instead of counterclockwise. That uses a little bit less yarn on your purl stitch than a typical Western style purl stitch does, and then when you come back to that stitch on the next row, your stitch will be mounted in the eastern position with the right leg to the back of the needle and the left leg to the front of the needle, and you just work through the back leg to keep everything untwisted. And that is a way that you can work out tension issues between in knit purl combinations like ribbing when you're switching from the knit stitches to the purl stitches. So there you can see my change is all finished, and like I said, if not for the fact that I'm using 2 different colors of yarn, you wouldn't even know that I had joined in new yarn. I do have these bits of leftover tail, and to deal with them, you just take your scissors and you can just clip those tails close to the fabric. You don't have to do anything fancy. I usually leave a little bit of a tag just because that kind of just helps keep them staying to the back of the work. But yeah, there it is. That's the braided join. I really do enjoy this join. It is very effective, but of course, nothing is perfect in life, and that includes the braided join. It is very fiddly. I think that's the biggest knock against it, is it is a fiddly join to do. And if you don't like that sort of fiddliness, or if you have any dexterity issues, doing that braided join may not be a great option for you. The other thing about this join is it will not work with single ply yarns, because obviously you need to be able to undo some of the plies from the new ball of yarn in order to do the braid. Occasionally you will run into a plied yarn where there isn't enough twist in the individual plies to keep the fiber together in order to do the braided join. That's a pretty rare circumstance, but you can run into it. It happened to me. That's how I know it can happen, because it happened to me. So there are drawbacks to this technique, and it's not one that I turn to frequently, but it is one that's really great to know, because it does work with almost any plied yarn, no matter what the fiber is. It does maintain the thickness of the yarn. You do really mitigate or eliminate the need to weave in more tails, and there's definitely been situations where it was my best solution for joining in yarn. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention with this technique and why it might be a good idea to get comfortable with doing a braided join is you can, in some circumstances, combine a braided join with a Russian join. I have done that with some superwash wools for very good effect. And if you'd like to see a video specifically for me showing you how to do that, let me know down in the comments below. Also in the comments below, let me know, is this a join that you've tried before? Do you have any tips or tricks to making it work for you? Or are you like, no thank you, that join looks too fiddly, not for me? I'd love to hear about it, or any questions that you have down in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you found this video helpful. If so, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your other knitting friends. Liking videos, sharing videos, commenting on videos are all great ways to let YouTube know that this is a space worth checking out, and it really does help support my channel, as does making sure that you are subscribed and you've hit the notification bell. Hitting the notification bell will make sure you get alerted whenever I upload a new video or start a live stream. If you'd like to go beyond likes and subscribes to help support my channel, I do have super thanks turned on, or you can always buy me a coffee. I love making these videos and being a resource to the knitting community, but it does take time, resources, and coffee. So any commissions I get through affiliate links or through a tip does get reinvested back to the channel, and thank you so much. That is it for me today. I hope that you have a wonderful day, evening, weekend, weeknight, whenever you may be watching this, and as always, happy health and happy making. Bye! Just loosening up for the video. Whew. All right. A lot of people like to use magic knots. And, well, people are going in the bathroom. A lot of times people like to use magic knots. This join works with any plied yarn, works with any plied yarn. I felt more secure with maintaining kind of the structural. You are braiding your new tail of yarn around the old tail, the tail of the old yarns. Why can I not say this? So of course, nothing is perfect. As you can see, by the way, at the end of the video, you are going to see a couple of video suggestions pop up if you'd like to watch more videos from me, or you get one last chance to subscribe. Down in the corner, you'll see a little picture of me. Click on that picture and you can subscribe. Okay, that's it. All right, last plug is in, and I have got to go.